The moment before Patricia collapsed at her own charity gala, a stranger's voice cut through her panic. "That bra is tight." Then his hands were on her bare back, and 300 people stopped breathing with her. Patricia Robles couldn't turn around, couldn't speak, could barely think through the white-hot pressure crushing her ribcage from the inside out. She stood near a marble column in the Grand Meridian ballroom, one hand braced against cold stone, the other pressed uselessly against emerald fabric that refused to give. The custom-laced gown her assistant had insisted upon was killing her. Not metaphorically, actually killing her. Around her, Chicago's elite moved through the charity gala she'd spent 6 months organizing. Crystal chandeliers threw diamonds of light across black tuxedos and jewel-toned silk. Champagne glasses clinked. Conversations hummed with money and influence. The orchestra played something classical and expensive. Nobody noticed the event director suffocating 3 feet from the dessert table. Patricia had tried. God, she'd tried. Her fingers had fumbled at her back, searching desperately for the laces, the hook, anything she could loosen. But the gown's intricate corset-back design was built for beauty, not emergency breathing. Each shallow gasp pulled the underwire deeper into her ribs. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. She'd survived so much worse than this. A violent ex, cartel threats, federal witness protection she'd walked away from, because hiding forever felt like dying slowly. She'd built this new life, this new identity, through sheer force of will, and she was going to pass out at her own gala because of lingerie. "You have less than 2 minutes before you collapse," the voice continued. Closer now, probably less. Patricia managed to turn her head slightly. The ballroom spun, but she caught a glimpse. A man in an immaculate black suit, mid-30s, with sharp features and darker eyes that seemed to see straight through expensive fabric to the panic beneath. His presence made the crowd move around him like water parting for a blade. "I'm fine," she lied, the words scraping out on half a breath. "You're not." He stepped into her peripheral vision, and she noticed how people instinctively gave him space. Not the polite distance of wealth, something else. Something that raised every survival instinct she'd honed over 3 years of running. "And unless you want to hit this marble floor in front of 500 donors and the press, you'll let me help." Her mind screamed warnings. Strange men who noticed women in distress at galas where half the guest list had questionable connections were never just good Samaritans. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. But she also couldn't breathe. "Fine." The word barely made it past her lips. He moved behind her with unsettling confidence. No hesitation, no asking permission twice. "Don't move. This will take a moment." Patricia froze as his fingers found the hidden laces at her spine. The first touch was surprisingly gentle, methodical, almost clinical but intimate in a way that made her hyper-aware of every nerve ending despite the oxygen deprivation. The fabric gave, just slightly, just enough. Air rushed into her lungs, not full breaths yet. But God, it felt like resurrection. "Who are you?" she managed. "Someone who notices when a woman can't breathe." Another lace loosened. More air. The black spots began to recede. "Better?" "Yes." Relief flooded through her. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Whoever designed this was either incompetent or actively trying to kill you." His fingers worked with practiced precision, finding pressure points she didn't know existed. Possibly both. Despite everything, the pain, the fear, the public intimacy of a stranger's hands on her back, Patricia almost laughed. Almost. "My assistant said it was elegant. Elegant shouldn't require emergency medical intervention." He found the main knot, the source of the strangulation, and began to carefully undo it. "There, try breathing now." She did. A full breath. Deep, clean, perfect. The relief was so intense she felt lightheaded for entirely different reasons. He stepped around to face her, and up close he was even more striking than that first glimpse suggested. Beautiful in a dangerous way, the kind of beautiful that came with warning labels. "Jumak Dan," he said, watching her with those dark, cataloging eyes. "Patricia." She didn't offer her last name. Something about him made her cautious, even as he'd just saved her from humiliation, even as she owed him. "Patricia." He repeated it slowly, like he was testing how her name felt in his mouth. "Next time, don't let anyone dress you like they're trying to kill you." Already planning on it. The smallest smile touched his lips barely there, but it transformed his entire face from severe to something almost warm. "Good. Self-preservation is attractive." Before she could figure out how to respond to that, he reached into his jacket and produced a stark white card. No title, no company name, just his name and an address overlooking the river. He pressed it into her palm. You'll want to visit tomorrow night. 9 o'clock. It wasn't a request. It wasn't exactly a command either. It was something else entirely. A certainty that made her pulse quicken for reasons that had nothing to do with oxygen deprivation. Why would I? But someone called his name from across the ballroom. His expression shifted immediately, the warmth vanishing like it had never existed. He became unreadable again. Distant, the kind of distant that came with power and secrets. Because you're curious, he said simply. And because I already know who you really are. Patricia Robles. He said her full name, her real name, the one she'd buried along with her past, before she could respond, before she could panic, before she could demand answers. He walked away, the crowd parting for him like he owned every inch of the ballroom. Which, Patricia would later learn, wasn't far from the truth. She stood there, breathing freely for the first time in an hour, the mysterious card burning in her hand, her carefully constructed new identity suddenly feeling as flimsy as the laces he'd just undone. The man who'd saved her from suffocating had just done something infinitely more dangerous. He'd seen through every defense she'd built, and part of her, the reckless, curious part she'd tried to bury, wanted to know what else he could see. Before we go any further, and trust me, we're going somewhere you won't want to miss, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe. Right now. Hit that button like your life depends on it, because here's the truth. You stumbled onto this video for a reason. Maybe you love morally gray men who'd burn cities for one person. Maybe you're addicted to stories where love is as dangerous as it is real. Maybe you just needed to escape into something that makes you feel alive. Whatever brought you here, you belong in this dark romance family. Hit that like button, and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing our little dark romance family stretch across cities, countries, and time zones. Every click, every comment, every bit of love you leave here helps us keep unraveling these dangerous love stories and high-stakes betrayals together. And let's be honest, you're already hooked. You want to know what happens when Patricia walks into that penthouse. You need to know what Jumak already knows about her past, so don't fight it. Subscribe, find your quiet place, dim the lights, and get ready. Let's begin. Patricia didn't sleep that night. She paced her small apartment, the white card sitting on her kitchen counter like a loaded gun. Tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, an address she shouldn't visit, a man who shouldn't know her name. But as dawn broke over Chicago, she knew the truth. She was going. Because for the first time in 3 years of running, someone had found her, and instead of fear, all she felt was a dangerous, magnetic pull toward the very thing she'd sworn to avoid. Patricia didn't go to his penthouse at 9. She went at 8:47, because waiting any longer felt like cowardice. All day, she'd told herself she wouldn't go. That curiosity was how women like her ended up dead. She'd learned that lesson in Guadalajara, when curiosity about her ex's business meetings had ended with her face against a wall and his hand around her throat. When powerful men showed interest, it was never benevolent. It was ownership dressed up as protection. Never again, she'd promised herself during the federal debriefing. Never depend on powerful men again. But Jumak Dan already knew her name, her real name, which meant he either wanted something from her or wanted to eliminate a loose end. Either way, ignorance wouldn't save her. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a riverfront tower. 2 men in dark suits flanked the private elevator, their jackets cut to conceal weapons. They nodded as she approached like they'd been expecting her. The doors opened directly into his apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Chicago's glittering skyline. Minimalist furniture, expensive art, everything sleek, controlled, curated. The space felt less like a home and more like a very beautiful trap. Jumak stood by the windows, silhouetted against the city lights. When he turned, his expression was unreadable. "You came early," he observed. "You knew I'd come." "Yes." He moved to a bar cart, pouring amber liquid into 2 glasses with practiced ease. "But I wasn't sure if you'd try to be fashionably late, or arrive when you could still make an escape before full dark." He handed her the drink. Their fingers brushed. "Why did you wear that gown?" he asked quietly. "A woman as careful as you, who checks exits before sitting down. Why suffocate yourself in public?" Patricia's jaw tightened. He'd been watching her long before last night. "Image," she said carefully. "Sometimes survival means looking like you belong. And sometimes," Jumak countered, his dark eyes holding hers, "it means knowing when control is just another corset, slowly crushing you from the inside." The words hit too close. Patricia set down her untouched drink. "What do you want from me? Tonight? Just conversation." His slight smile didn't reach his eyes. "Tomorrow? We'll see what threats arrive first. She should have left then. Should have run. Instead, she asked, "What do you know about threats coming for me?" And Jumok's smile finally disappeared entirely. "Everything, Patricia. I know everything." The coffee shop meeting started accidentally, or so Patricia told herself. Monday morning, he was there. Wednesday afternoon, the same corner table. Friday evening at the gallery opening she'd planned, Jumok appeared like gravity had pulled him into her orbit. Each conversation peeled back another layer. His questions were surgical, precise, revealing more about what he already knew than what he asked. And the way people moved around him, staff, security, even other patrons, spoke louder than any introduction. By the 7th day, Patricia couldn't pretend anymore. "What are you?" she asked over untouched wine at a riverside restaurant he'd suggested. Jumok set down his glass with careful deliberation. "The head of the Dan family. We control shipping routes, real estate, certain, less publicized networks throughout the Midwest." The air left her lungs different from the gala, but just as suffocating. Mafia, Korean syndicate, the kind of power that disappeared people. She stood, her chair scraped against polished concrete. "I should go." "Sit down, Mariana." Her birth name, the one buried in federal files, the one she'd left behind 3 years ago in a Guadalajara safe house. Patricia's knees went weak. She sat. "I know your ex was Javier Ruiz's enforcer," Jumok continued, his voice terrifyingly calm. "I know you testified. I know you walked away from witness protection 8 months ago because you didn't trust them to keep you alive." He leaned forward slightly. "And I know the Ruiz cartel still has a price on your head. Are you here to collect?" Her voice barely held steady. "No." Something shifted in his expression, almost offense. "I'm here because the people pushing into my territory are the same ones hunting you. And because," he paused, chose his words carefully, "I notice things other people miss, like women who can't breathe, and survivors pretending they're not running. Why tell me this? Because you deserve to know what's coming." His hand moved across the table, not touching, but close enough to feel the heat. "And because I haven't told anyone else your secret. Patricia, I won't." Fear warred with something more dangerous, the first thread of trust she'd felt in years. "Why not?" she whispered. Jumok's eyes held hers. "Because some things are worth protecting, even when they're dangerous. Especially then," his tone suggested. Patricia didn't run. Not that night. That was her first mistake. Or her first moment of faith. The call came at 2 a.m. Patricia was still awake. She'd started keeping Jumok's hours without meaning to, when his phone shattered the silence of his penthouse. She'd been staying there for 3 nights now. "For safety," he'd said. "Just until we understand the threat." She watched his face change as he answered. The warmth drained out like someone had opened a valve. "How many?" A pause. His jaw tightened. "Secure the site. I'm coming now." He was already moving, pulling on a jacket, checking something at his waistband. A gun, Patricia realized. She'd never seen him armed before. "What happened?" "The warehouse on Archer Avenue. They hit it an hour ago." His voice was flat, mechanical. "Chen is dead." Chen, the quiet man who'd driven them to dinner twice. Who'd smiled when Jumok made a rare joke. "Jumok, stay here. Don't leave this floor." He was at the elevator before she could respond, already calling someone. "I want the South Side crew mobilized. Find out which faction claimed this, then burn everything they own to the fucking ground." The doors closed on his words. Patricia didn't see him again until dawn. When he returned, there was blood on his cuff, not his own, and his eyes held something she'd never seen before. Not anger, calculation, the cold mathematics of violence. "What did you do?" she asked, though part of her didn't want to know. "What was necessary?" He poured himself whiskey with steady hands. 4 of theirs for 1 of ours." The message needed to be clear. 4 people, Jumok. You. Her voice cracked. "You killed 4 people. Yes." No hesitation, no remorse. He met her horrified gaze directly. "In my world, Patricia, softness is blood in the water. Chen died because someone thought we'd gone soft. I corrected that assumption. This is who you are." Not a question. A realization. This is what survival requires. He approached her slowly, giving her space to retreat. She didn't. "The man who loosened your gown is the same man who signs death warrants. I won't apologize for keeping my people alive." Patricia's hands shook. Every instinct screamed to run back to hiding. back to loneliness, back to suffocating alone. But she stayed frozen, staring at blood-stained cuffs and dark eyes that had once looked at her with such gentleness. "I need time," she whispered. "Take it." He turned away. "But take it here, where I know you're safe." Even his protection felt like a cage now. Patricia lasted 3 days before she tried to go home. She needed space, distance. Her own apartment with locks she'd installed herself and an escape route she'd memorized. Jumok's penthouse felt gilded and suffocating in equal measure. She waited until he was in meetings, then slipped out. The van appeared 2 blocks from her building. No warning, just screeching tires and masked men pouring into the street. Hands grabbed her arms, yanking her toward the open door. Patricia screamed, fought, drove her elbow into someone's ribs. Gunfire cracked the air. The hands released. Her attackers scattered as black SUVs materialized from nowhere, men in dark suits moving with military precision. One of them, she recognized him from Jumok's security detail, pulled her behind a car. "Are you hurt?" She couldn't answer. Couldn't breathe. Again. Always again. What the fuck were you thinking? Jumok's control had finally shattered. He paced his penthouse like a caged predator, fury radiating off him in waves. "I had men on you for a reason, Patricia. If they'd been 30 seconds slower, I didn't ask for guards." She stood her ground despite trembling hands. "I didn't ask to be monitored like someone with a cartel hit squad hunting her." His voice cut like glass. "The rival faction? They're being funded by the Ruiz cartel. Your ex's people, Patricia. They're using you to get to me, and me to get to you. This stopped being separate wars the moment he stopped himself." "The moment we what?" Patricia wanted to ask, but fear choked the words. "I've made you vulnerable," she said instead. The guilt crushing. "I'm a weakness they can exploit." "You're not a weakness." Jumok crossed to her, gripping her shoulders. "You're a target. There's a difference, which is why you're moving in here. Permanently. Non-negotiable. You can't just decide that." "I can and I am." His tone brooked no argument. "Your independence isn't worth your life." Patricia jerked away. "My ex said the same thing, right before he locked me in a basement for 3 days." Jumok flinched like she'd struck him. "I'm not him. Then stop acting like you own me." Silence stretched between them, sharp and painful. "I'm trying," Jumok said finally, voice low and raw, "to keep you alive, even if you hate me for it." Patricia closed her eyes. Fear won. It always did. "I'll stay," she whispered. "But not because you demanded it." "Why then?" "Because I'm terrified. And you're the only one who's ever actually kept me safe." The admission tasted like surrender and something dangerously close to trust. And just like that, she chose the cage. But here's the thing about cages built by men like Jumok: they're not meant to trap you. They're meant to protect you from what's outside. The question is, what happens when the thing outside wants her badly enough to break through? If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. This story is about to get brutal, and you'll hate yourself if you miss what comes next. 1 click. That's all it takes to make sure you're here when everything falls apart. Drop a comment if you think Patricia's making the right choice, or if you think she's already in too deep. Because I promise you, what's coming next will make that kidnapping attempt look like a warning shot. I read every single one of your comments, and I want to know, would you stay or would you run? Now let's see what Patricia's choice costs her. 3 weeks passed like a beautiful, terrible dream. Patricia learned the rhythms of Jumok's world, the late-night calls, the encrypted meetings, the moments when his carefully controlled mask slipped and she glimpsed something raw underneath. Guards rotated shifts. Routes changed daily. She couldn't go anywhere without shadows following. But between the surveillance and fear, something else grew. Late nights on the terrace. Jumok's jacket draped over her shoulders as they watched the city lights, his fingers tracing the scar on her wrist, the one from when Javier had thrown her through glass with devastating gentleness. "I wanted to be a teacher once," she confessed one night, wine warm and unguarded. "Before everything. You still could be." His thumb brushed her pulse point. After felt like a promise neither could keep. Their faces drew closer. She could feel his breath, see the war in his eyes, want versus wisdom. His hand cupped her jaw. His phone shattered the moment. Jumok's expression transformed as he read the message. All warmth vanished, replaced by something that looked like dread. "What is it?" "Pack a bag. Now." "Jumok, the cartel put 5 million on your head. It hit the network an hour ago." His voice was flat, controlled, terrifying. "Every mercenary and desperate crew from here to the border will be hunting you by morning. So we increase security. No, you're leaving. Tonight. He was already on the phone, barking orders. The safe house in Montana. No one knows about it. You can't just ship me off. I can and I am. He finally looked at her, and the anguish in his eyes almost broke her resolve. Patricia, please, don't fight me on this. You're doing it again, her voice cracked. Controlling me, deciding for me exactly like he did. I'm not him. Jumok's composure finally splintered. Javier controlled you because he enjoyed it. His voice broke. I would burn this entire fucking city before I let them touch you. Is that control? Or is that love? The word hung unspoken between them. You're still not asking, Patricia whispered, tears burning. You're telling, because if I ask, you'll say no, and you'll die. He reached for her, desperate. Hate me. Call me every name he earned. But get on that plane alive. The helicopter waited on the roof. Patricia boarded, heartbroken and furious, watching Chicago disappear below. Jumok stood on the landing pad until she was just a light in the darkness. The Montana safe house was a cage with mountain views. 5 days. No phone, no internet, just guards who wouldn't meet her eyes in silence, so complete it screamed. Patricia paced the luxury prison, rage and fear eating her alive. He'd locked her away like a possession, like something fragile, like she wasn't a survivor who'd already escaped one war. She hated him for it. She was terrified for him because of it. 800 miles away, Jumok walked into a Southside warehouse with empty hands. His men had argued for hours. Sending him alone was suicide. But the meeting terms were clear. The boss, unarmed, or no negotiation. The rival faction waited with cartel representatives' faces Patricia would have recognized from her nightmares. They stood in a loose semicircle, weapons visible. You came, their leader said, almost surprised. I'm here to make a deal. Jumok's voice carried through the vast space. Territory concessions, shipping routes, cash, whatever ends this. And in return, you end the contract on Patricia Robles, permanently, verified and witnessed. Laughter echoed off concrete. You're offering us your empire for a woman? I'm offering you survival. Jumok's expression didn't change. Take the deal. Everyone walks away. The leader's smile disappeared. He raised his gun. No one threatens us and lives. The first shot punched through Jumok's shoulder. The second caught his chest. He went down. Then the warehouse exploded into violence. His men, positioned in the rafters and shadows, unleashed hell. Gunfire strobed through darkness. Bodies fell. The carefully planned ambush became a massacre, but not the one his enemies expected. When silence finally returned, the rival leadership was gone. The cartel's representatives lay still, and Jumok was drowning in his own blood on cold concrete. Patricia's guard Lee, who'd smiled at her once, took the call at 3 a.m. She watched his face drain of color. What happened? She already knew. Felt it like a wound of her own. Miss Robles, you need to stay. Tell me, or I walk out that door. Lee's resistance crumbled. He's in surgery. It's bad. Patricia grabbed his arm. Get me to Chicago, now. I'll pay anything. I can't. He's dying. Her voice broke. And I'm done running. 20 minutes later, they were airborne. Patricia ran through Northwestern Memorial like the building was on fire. Security tried to stop her. She didn't slow. Jumok's men recognized her and stepped aside, their expressions grim. That told her everything she needed to know about how bad it was. ICU, private wing, armed guards at every corridor. She burst through the door. The machines beeped steadily, the only sound louder than her hammering heart. Jumok lay motionless in white sheets, skin pale as death, tubes snaking from his arms and chest. A ventilator breathed for him in mechanical rhythm. Patricia's knees buckled. She caught herself on the bed rail. You stupid, stupid man, she whispered. His eyes cracked open. Barely. Recognition flickered through the haze of morphine. Patricia. Her name came out broken, threaded through the breathing tube. You shouldn't be. Shut up. She grabbed his hand, careful of the IV. Just shut up. Not safe. Each word cost him. You need to go. No. Tears burned her cheeks. I'm done running, Jumok. Done hiding. Done letting fear decide where I belong. He struggled to focus. I'll let you go. Disappear you. Somewhere they'll never. A cough rattled his chest. Blood flecked his lips. Can't drag you into my darkness. Your darkness? Patricia leaned close, forcing him to see her. I've been living in darkness for 3 years. running from city to city, sleeping with exits memorized, trusting no one. That's not protection, that's slow suffocation. Just another corset, crushing me from the inside. His fingers tightened weakly around hers. You didn't trap me, she said, voice breaking. You saw me, the real me. You noticed when I couldn't breathe literally, and every other way that mattered. She pressed her forehead to his hand. Running hasn't protected me. Hiding hasn't healed me. But you, God help me, you made me want to stop running. Patricia, I love you. The words tore free, raw and terrified and absolutely certain. I love you, and I'm choosing you. Deliberately. Eyes open. Even knowing what your world costs. Jumok's eyes glistened. Could die tomorrow. Then we die tomorrow. She kissed his knuckles. But tonight, I stay. Dangerous. Everything is dangerous. At least with you I can breathe. His thumb brushed her cheek, catching tears. Love you, he managed. So much. I know. Patricia climbed carefully onto the narrow bed, curling against his uninjured side. Now rest. I'm not going anywhere. For the first time in 3 years. Neither was she running nor hiding. She was simply home. Take a breath. I know that hit hard. Love that comes with scars and bullet wounds, and the choice to stay when running would be easier. That's the kind of love that breaks you open and remakes you. And if you felt that, if you're sitting here with your heart in your throat thinking about what it means to choose someone fully, even when it's dangerous, you're my people. You're the reason I do this. So if this story spoke to you, if it reached inside and squeezed something you thought you'd buried, subscribe. Not just for me, but because you deserve more stories that make you feel this deeply. Hit that like button. Comment and tell me what moment broke you most. Was it the warehouse? The hospital confession? That first moment when he unlaced her gown in front of everyone? I'm reading every single one, and I want to know what landed. What made you catch your breath? What made you realize you were in too deep to click away? You're part of this dark romance family now, and we're just getting started. Let's see how they heal. Together. 6 months later, Patricia stood in front of the mirror, adjusting a dress she'd chosen herself. Simple midnight blue silk. No corset, no underwire digging into ribs. A bra that actually fit, comfortable, supportive, breathable. She could expand her lungs fully without restriction. It felt revolutionary. Ready? Jumok appeared behind her, moving easier now, though his chest still bore the scars. The doctors called his survival miraculous. Patricia called it stubbornness. Almost. She turned, straightening his tie. He'd been doing this more lately, legitimate business events, charity boards, gradual distancing from the Dan family's darker operations. It was slow, dangerous work. Some nights he still came home with blood on his hands, metaphorical or otherwise, but they were trying. Together, the gallery opening was small, elegant. Patricia's first official event as his partner, not his secret. Cameras flashed as they entered. Whispers followed the mysterious woman who'd tamed Chicago's most dangerous bachelor. If only they knew the truth was messier, bloodier, more complicated, more real. Halfway through the evening, Jumok pulled her aside to a quiet corner, his hand warm at the small of her back. Still breathing okay? He asked softly, echoing that first night. Patricia smiled, the question hitting differently now. Not about fabric and physics. About freedom and choice, and the space to exist without suffocation. For the first time, she answered. Yes. He kissed her temple, lingering. Good. That's all I've ever wanted. Liar. She leaned into him. You want world domination and a decent espresso machine. His rare laugh rumbled through his chest. You know me too well. Through the windows, Chicago glittered beautiful and brutal, full of shadows they'd never fully escape. Patricia's past wasn't erased. Jumok's empire wasn't clean. Threats still lingered at the edges of their carefully constructed peace. But tonight, in a dress that let her breathe, standing beside a man who'd literally taken bullets to keep her safe, Patricia felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the naive kind. The hard-won kind. The kind that acknowledged darkness but chose light anyway. Jumok's hand found hers, fingers interlacing. Ready to face them? He nodded toward the crowd. Patricia squeezed back. With you? Always. They stepped forward together, no longer running, no longer hiding, just breathing. Free, alive, and finally, impossibly, home.